This is 95.7 FM, WELT. I'm Gena, connecting community around the globe. In the studio today, business owner Theresa Steele of Steele Business Coaching. How are you, Theresa?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. So, who's Theresa Steele, the woman?
Well, I am many things. I'm a sister, daughter, entrepreneur, mom, and I am part of the Fort Wayne community, and I'm glad to be working with businesses around the area to help them grow their business, to put structure and systems in place so that they can move it to the next level.
So you're an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Why entrepreneurship?
Because it allows me to kind of set the stage for the direction I want to go and how I want to help and work with businesses. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So both my parents were entrepreneurs. A couple of my siblings have owned their own businesses. I owned my own business when I was 21. So a lot of entrepreneurship around. And then I've worked with small businesses. And I have a passion for helping them because I know some of the challenges that they encounter just trying to run the business. Typically they go into business because they're passionate about whatever it is that they're pursuing. Mm-hmm. And then they find themselves running into all these obstacles and putting out tons of fires. So at that point, they really find out that they are not fully equipped to do the work that they really want to do. And so what I can do is come in and help them take that step back, rise above the business, and see it from a bird's eye view so they can see the big picture.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And start working on putting the structure in place, the systems in place, so they can run it more effectively.
Right. How did you, though, get here to Steele Business Coaching? How did you get here personally? Because my understanding in talking with you is that you were an engineer.
Yeah, so
Let's talk about the journey. I want to hear the journey.
Well, when I was running my own business, I took a career assessment at that time. I was going to school for business, focused on accounting, and took a career assessment, and engineering came up all over the place. And so I did some research and ended up going to work for some engineers. And at that time, I was focused on civil engineering and land surveying. And I worked for a couple small businesses. I ended up working for the state. And I switched from business to engineering and land surveying. I thought I was going to go down that path. So doing everything I could, getting all the experience, both in-house, getting the design experience, and then also out in the field when I was working with the state. But during that time, I was actually being actively recruited. And after a couple years of being recruited, I finally decided to make that switch and ended up going to work for a global manufacturer.
Oh, wow.
So big switch from civil engineering to mechanical engineering in the manufacturing world. And, fell in love with that. I love processes. I love understanding how things work. It fell right in line with what I enjoyed doing. I love putting together the systems, streamlining the processes, setting up the standards, which is what I was recruited to do.
Okay.
And I worked in the aerospace program in the aerospace division and, helped them in all their areas, did some training for their application engineers, product engineers, sales engineers, customers, just all around. So just bringing all those people together and training them. And at that time, I ended up going back to business and getting my bachelor's in business management. And from there, I decided that what would really benefit the community and what I was passionate about is helping businesses and smaller businesses because they didn't have all the resources that a big corporation had. And so taking all the knowledge, experience, education, and then going back out into the community and serving the small businesses in the area.
Nice. How do you manage that as a mom?
Well, that's a good question. It has been a challenge because I have managed it. I've been a single mom most of my adult life, and you just go with it.
Just go with it.
Really, you just go with it. I mean, I don't really know how to explain that because honestly, you just see what needs to happen and you just make it happen. That's how I've always done it. I guess I didn't focus on where I was where I was limited. I was just focused on where I needed to go and just made it happen. And if I saw the obstacles, I looked at ways to knock them down so that I could go where I needed to go.
I like that, your idea, because every question that I've asked about in any direction, that is what you said. I just look at where I'm going and focus and move full speed ahead.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And then, one of the things that I've found is just meeting the right people. And I've been really blessed by the relationships I've made. But understanding that it's so critical to build those relationships, maintain those relationships, because they can open the doors to make things happen. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to take the credit for where I am and how I've gotten there. There have been many people along the way that have helped me get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And why business coaching?
Well, working with those businesses, growing up in that environment,
I see.
I've seen the challenges that they've experienced, and my passion is making things more efficient and streamlining processes. And so, and then seeing...
That's the engineering part, isn't it?
I think so. I think wanting to understand how things work and then, to make them better. I mean, when we were in the manufacturing setting, it was all about continuous improvement and continuing to grow, looking at inefficiency and then trying to figure out a way to break through those inefficiencies and just open the, knock down obstacles for people, make it smoother for them.
Nice.
So...
Okay, I'm just going to have to go here. So when I ask the question, it's very intriguing to me to meet women who are doing things that women don't typically do. It's really intriguing to me to talk to women that are in a world, in a business setting that's dominated, in my mindset, by men. And what you've shared with me is interesting because of you growing up with all brothers. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, I think I'm desensitized by that because I hear it a lot. And I know it's true that there is a gap, but there is a gender gap. But I guess I haven't really focused on that just because I grew up around my brothers. So I was used to being around mostly men. Most of the jobs that I've had, I've been surrounded by men. And it just sometimes, when you're around it all your life, it doesn't really occur to you that you're the only one that's not a man.
Right.
So I guess I've just become accustomed to it and focus on the goals rather than how I might not assimilate to those around me.
That's where your success is coming from, too. Yeah.
I think it probably does contribute.
Yes. So let's talk about SteeleBC coaching.
So I've had the business for 6 years, and I started in July 2012, and that was coming out of the manufacturing company and wanting to go to work with small businesses, giving them the tools that they needed to be successful. Because I'm sure you've heard the statistics that within the first 5 years, a lot of businesses will fail. Mm-hmm. And it's really unfortunate to me to see and hear that. And so wanting to give them the tools, help equip them so that they, those statistics are lowered, at least in this area, at least with the businesses in this community that I can actually reach out to and help. And so that's really what has driven me initially when I started. And it has somewhat shifted because one of the things that I'm really passionate about is healthy families. And when there's a lot of stress in business, all the way from top to bottom, if you're engaged in that business and you want to see it succeed, sometimes that can be your focus, and you could be more married to your work than you are engaged and connected with your family. Mm-hmm. And if there's stress and there's struggles at work, your focus, your mental energy, sometimes your physical being is there present at work than it is available for your family. So if we can clear up some of those challenges at work, freeing up your stress from work, then you're more available. And my hope is by coming in and helping put that structure and those systems in place and removing some of that stress so that you don't have as many fires. You're always going to have some problems and some challenges.
Right.
But if you can reduce that, then you're going to be more available to your spouse if you're married and to your children if you have children.
Very nice.
Or contributing to the community if that's what you do outside of work.
Very nice. So talk about what is the process of Steele Business Coaching?
So I use the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, and I was actually introduced to that coaching program a couple years ago when I picked up the book Traction by Gena. And prior to that, I collected my own tools and used that to help businesses. But after reading this book, I fell in love with it, but having that engineering background and wanting to be a fact finder, I had to look at some other coaching programs out there before I made a decision. So looked at a couple different ones, some of them that were focused on working with the business owner and others that were focused on working with the leadership team. And Traction works with leadership teams. I felt that was most effective because you could see multiple perspectives within the business, and that would give you a big picture view of what was going on so that you could more effectively identify the issues and then come up with solutions to those issues.
Okay.
So that's a big driver for why I went that direction. And then why I went with EOS in particular is because it was a holistic yet simplified approach to helping businesses. And most business owners don't have time for complexity. They've already got complexity. And as they grow, that's a natural, that naturally happens as it grows in complexity. So what EOS does is it helps to simplify and clarify so that everyone can be on the same page, and it's easier for them to break through the challenges that they have. So essentially, EOS, the system, how simplified it is, what it does for small business owners is why I went with that.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the resources that you actually suggest as well.
Yeah, so if you want to have some background on what the Entrepreneurial Operating System is, there's Traction is one of the books by Gena, and then there are 4 other books in that library. There's Get a Grip, and he's co-authored the other books. Get a Grip is a business fable that he wrote with Mike Payton, and that puts the EOS system into a storyline, essentially.
Meaning what?
So if you're familiar with Patrick Lencioni's books, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team or The 4 Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive, he's taken a story and put his coaching program into it and showed you how it can change and affect a business.
Okay.
So that's Get a Grip. And then there's Rocket Fuel, which is great if you have a partnership, because a lot of times when there is a partnership, those partners are completely different, and that's great because they have different strengths, which are both essential and very important. One can be that visionary that can cast the vision and keep a pulse on the industry going forward so that they don't become obsolete. And then what we call the integrator is the person that is the glue for the corporation or the business. And that person integrates the way that the leadership team works together to achieve their common vision. So that's the person that handles the day-to-day operations.
What if you have a visionary but no person that's moving it forward?
That can cause some chaos because a visionary is always out there, always looking, and it causes frustration for the visionary as well because they don't understand why everyone else
not following them, huh?
Exactly, because they're just getting used to the new idea and getting that up and going, and then here comes this great mind coming back saying, but we've got to do this or we got to switch directions. And it's important to have that person in between to keep the visionary grounded. And if he's throwing something over the wall, we say we get to throw it back over. We'll discuss it, and as a team, if it makes sense, then we'll strategically incorporate it into the business, but not a lot of shifting gears in different directions.
Wow.
Occasionally that's needed, but for the most part, if you want to be successful, if you want to move to the next level, you need to have it planned out.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that's at that level that can kind of ground the visionary and let them know that we're not all there yet. Give us some time to get on the same page with you and get a plan in place.
Amazing. Okay, and these other 2 resources?
Oh, yes. And so how to be a great boss. And there are 3 things anyone with a direct report needs to have LMA. And LMA stands for lead, manage, and hold people accountable. So anyone that wants to lead other people, or anyone that has direct reports, needs to be able to do that. They need to be able to lead people, give them the direction that they need in order to take their department to that next level, and in conjunction with the other departments in the business. But they also need to manage the resources that are available or not available for their employees, their direct reports, and understand what's holding them back. If they're experiencing challenges, it's their manager's job to remove those challenges. So they free it up and then, hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. So it's a 2-way street. The manager has to remove the obstacles and then also hold the people accountable.
Wow. And then the final one talks about what is...
Yeah. So what the heck is EOS? And that's a great book for everyone in the organization. It's a short book, and it just gets everybody on the same page with what's coming, introducing them to all the terminology and what to expect that when they roll it out to the rest of the company. So I work with the leadership team.
Okay.
I help them master all the tools, and then they decide how quickly they want to roll it out to the rest of the company, and I help them during that process.
So you've answered this question, I think, that these books are available to anyone. You don't have to be a part. It's not just a part of the EOS process.
Right. Anyone can purchase them. They're available at eosworldwide.com, or you can buy them at Amazon. They're available in different through different resources.
Okay. What types of businesses do you service? Do you work with service business, manufacturer, social services?
It can work for both a service-oriented business or one with inventory. So product-based or service-based. Really doesn't matter. Typically, the sweet spot for EOS is businesses that are between 10 and 250 employees, or between 2 and 50 million in revenue. And I focus primarily on Northeast Indiana, although I've been willing to travel to work with businesses outside of that area if it's needed. And then ideally what we're looking for is leaders that are growth-oriented and open-minded. They're willing to be open and honest with themselves.
Okay.
And vulnerable. Because if they're not, we can't identify what's going on to help them move forward. And the other thing is that they have to be more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. So
what's the commitment for the business?
So I ask them for a long-term mental commitment. We don't do contracts or agreements. All we're asking them to do is commit to strengthening the 6 key components. So there's 6 of them. The first one is vision, and that's just getting everybody on the same page with where the company's going and how they're going to get there. We go through a series of 8 questions. We take them through some discovery exercises, get that defined, make sure everybody is in agreement to that at the leadership level. And then we make sure that it gets shared throughout the organization. We also work on the people component, and strengthening that is focusing on the core values, which we'll answer in those 8 questions in the vision component. And then we make sure that we're looking at the people that they have and the people that they're wanting to bring on on board. And so they're looking through the lens of their core values to hire, fire, review, reward, and recognize the different people in their company. That helps to build the culture, that helps perpetuate those core values. And we're also looking at the structure of the business going forward. So that's going to be dynamic and fluid. As they're growing forward, as they're growing, they've got to look at what do they need to do to get to that next level. So not staying complacent and where they're at, but always looking forward and structuring it, being more strategic in how that business needs to look going forward. And then there's the data component, and that's looking at numbers. Often, most entrepreneurs make decisions based on feelings or egos. Mm-hmm. And so we're moving them from subjective information to objective. And we're going to make decisions on data. We're going to help them create a simple scorecard and limit the numbers that they're looking at, look at stuff that's going to give them a pulse on what's going on in the business, and then that will help them see the trends and patterns, and when something's off, it'll flag so that they're alerted to what needs to be addressed. They can either get it back on track, or they can put it on an issues list that they can look at later to resolve. And so once we've done that, we've got the vision clear, we've got the people strong, the people component strong, and we've got the data component strong. That makes the company more transparent. So they know where they're going. Everybody knows that they're on the same page. They've got the right people in the right seats. And they're looking at the numbers and making decisions based on that. And that lets us flesh out all the issues that they might be experiencing. And when we're talking about issues, it's not so, we do teach them an issue-solving track to help them stay on track when they're solving their issues and digging down to the root cause. But it's also to drive a discipline down into the culture of anybody being comfortable with raising their hand when they see an issue and saying, there's an issue, acknowledging it so that all the issues throughout the organization can get on an issue list somewhere so it can be addressed. And then the fifth key component is the process component, and that's where, that's a lot of my passion is in the processes. But
the skill building part, then, is that what that is?
That's looking at the core processes of the business.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what makes it function, and making sure that that's clearly defined. It could be a little bit different for any company, but making sure that they know what drives the business, making sure that anybody that touches those processes is properly trained, and then they're being measured and managed to do it the right way every time. That drives consistency and makes their company more scalable. So if they can get that strong, then that'll take their company to the next level. And then the last key component is the traction component, and that is essentially bringing that vision down to the ground so they can execute on their business, on their vision. Unfortunately, that's where there's a lot of weaknesses in business. They'll do all that strategic planning, but then they struggle with the execution part of it. So after they do all their planning and everything, often that information gets set into a file or gets set on a shelf and forgotten. Sometimes it's only brought up when they need a loan. They create that business plan, and the next time they look at it is when they go to the bank to see if they can get a loan. But what EOS does is essentially helps them to take it and integrate it into their day-to-day. So they are constantly working forward, and we do that through setting their big priorities, and then through their weekly meeting pulse, which we call the level 10 meeting that we teach them. So it's an agenda that we teach them to help drive all those and strengthen all those components in the business, and they're always looking at it on a weekly basis.
So as a what advice would you give to anyone who's interested in becoming a business coach or becoming an EOC implementer, not facilitator, right?
Right. Well, so as an EOS implementer, there are 3 roles that we have. We teach them EOS. We facilitate their sessions so that they can get the most out of it. And I ask them not to look at me as the guru in their industry. I'm there to facilitate the wisdom in the room, and 90% of the time it's there. And then the third role that I have is as a coach. So I'm going to coach them to mastery. And what I would say is anyone that wants to become an EOS implementer, ideally you've had your own business so that you can understand the challenges that a business owner has, that they're experiencing. That allows you to understand, sympathize with them, and honestly, it builds credibility, because if you haven't been where they've been, they're not really going to be willing to take your advice. So having your own business, experiencing the challenges that are often common to most business owners, that's key right there. Also, having a passion to help. So with EOS, our core values are being humbly confident. And what that means is we are confident in what we do. We're well practiced in EOS. But we also know that we don't know everything. So knowing where we're strong and where we're not strong. And so that's humbly confident. The next one is making sure that we do the right thing. So that's just making sure that we don't betray any trust, and that we're always putting the business owner first, and being willing to do whatever it takes to resolve issues, which means sometimes that we're going to have to enter danger, what we call entering the danger zone. And what that means is if there's the elephant in the room, we're going to address it.
Okay. All right.
So instead of brushing it under the rug, if somebody's rolling their eyes, or somebody, you can tell that people aren't being open and honest, we're going to call them out. And make sure that they're doing that, because what we focus on is, one of our objectives is making sure that companies are open and honest, and that they're healthy and smart. So most companies focus on being smart, but not so much on the healthy part. So they're looking at all the strategies, all the training, but what they really need to focus on in conjunction with that is the relationships. And if there's anything that's toxic going on, if it's political, then, or if there's politics at play, they need to eliminate those, because that causes so much damage in a company. So we're looking at, as I said, the first one is be humbly confident. The next one's do the right thing, which sometimes means we have to enter the danger. Then the third one is, for EOS, they call it grow or die. Okay. I've changed that to strive for continuous improvement. So to soften it up a little bit, but essentially you're either growing or you're dying. So most companies, when they're going through and they're going along, they're going to hit what we call evolution, and they need to break through that ceiling. So they're going to hit a ceiling, and there's three things that can happen. They can either break through that ceiling, or they can flatline, or they'll fail. And so what we're doing is we're teaching them and giving them the tools so they can break through that ceiling each time that they hit it in their business, which is inevitable. So getting them to feel comfortable and realize that it is common in all businesses.
Which moves them to keep growing.
Yes. So if they can acknowledge that they've hit that ceiling, then it allows them to identify what they need to do to break through it, and we give them those tools.
Okay.
So that's what I call continuous improvement, what EOS has coined as grow or die. The fourth one is help first. So we are always going to put our clients' interests first. We're going to subordinate our personal interests and make sure that we are focusing on giving them value before we expect anything in return. And that's built into the way that we operate as well. So our guarantee is, I'm going to deliver value or you don't pay me anything. I give them the agenda. I let them know what to expect. We make sure that we're all on the same page. and then I deliver it.
What happens is, or has it ever happened that you've gotten to that point and there's that you're bumping heads with the owner, the business owner, and they're just not going, you guys are going in different directions? How has that happened, I should say?
It has not happened. No. When I am first talking to a company, we'll do what we call the 90-minute meeting.
Okay.
And during that time, I am sharing what EOS is, a little bit about me and my background. I'm asking questions about their company, where they're at, where they're wanting to go. Mm-hmm. And then I'm telling them about the tools and the process that I take my clients through. So they know fully what to expect. And at that, so they're vetting me and I'm vetting them.
Right.
It gives us, so we're basically going through an interview process at that time, where obviously I'm sharing more information about what I do and how I work with my clients and how I help their companies get to that next level.
But it's ultimately about building that relationship that they're going to trust you. And
yes.
I got it.
Yes.
Got it.
And
very interesting.
The one thing that's great about EOS is that all EOS implementers implement the process purely. So we've got the training that we've gone through. We've got our implementer guides, which is huge, and we're delivering that purely to everyone that we're working with. So no matter if you're working with me or you're working with someone else, you should be getting the same thing. I'm sorry, I don't know if I took us off tangent with that one. So, but that was with
help first.
Yes, help first, yes. And then the last one is do what we say, and what that means is we're going to lay out that agenda. We're going to tell you what we're going to do, and then we're going to deliver on that. And we won't under-deliver or over-promise. We're just making sure we're laying it out, and then we're always giving it our all. And sometimes, you'll see that it's going above and beyond what you expected. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. How many EOS facilitators or implementers are here?
In Fort Wayne, I am the only EOS implementer. We have one in Indy, and there's another one in South Bend. So within 2 hours.
Oh, it's growing then.
There are over 200 EOS implementers, and it's a global company. So it's throughout the world. We have a headquarters up in Livonia, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit, and then there's one in Australia. So there's most of the EOS implementers are here in the U.S.
Okay,
but there are some throughout the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Theresa, what is your vision and for the future? What's your vision for the future for the business world?
What I'd like to see happen is growing the amount of EOS implementers that are available for the Northeast Indiana businesses. So my vision is once I'm approaching my capacity of clients to take care of, bringing another EOS implementer on board and getting them trained up, making sure that they align with those core values and they are passionate about helping companies, and then growing that. So focusing on the Northeast Indiana area, I'd like to see an implementer, at least one EOS implementer in each county, and growing that based on the demands.
Very nice. Wow. Well, have we covered everything? There's so much more to this business coaching, but have we covered everything that you wanted to touch on?
Well, if anyone wants to know more, I'm always happy to share more about EOS, and I know that I can't answer everything in an interview, but you can reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. My name's Theresa Steele, or you can reach out to me by phone. My phone number is area code 260-750-7050, or by email at Theresa@SteeleBC.com. It's THERESA at Steele, STEELE, B as in boy, C as in cat.com. I'm happy to set up a time to meet you for coffee, and if you decide that it's a good fit, we can schedule a time to meet with your leadership team.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
I've learned a lot. You have been listening to Speak Now with Gena at 95.7 FM WELT.